Happy Mother's Day. As I sat here listening to James sing this beautiful song, I'm reminded that in 1995, when I first landed on these grounds and came here as associate minister, what I felt the essence of this ministry was divine love. I could feel the feminine, nurturing nature of this ministry. And for those of you who have come here for many, many years or who just now showed up, you would have to agree that there is that essence here that nurtures, loves, brings joy, carries the wisdom that we all have innate to us as God's children. And so with that being said, I'm very glad and happy to be here doing this talk today. It's an honor, and thank you for allowing me to be here once again. And so the first task at hand is to honor all mothers. So if you happen to be a mom, if you would please stand up. It is because of you today that we have gathered around our country. We honor and salute you for your love. And although sometimes it might not have expressed the perfect way you would have liked it to have been, it was the best you could give. And God does not require more. And so today, we bless you for giving your highest and best to those you gave birth to and you love. And so we honor you and we bless you as mothers to our children. Thank you for taking on this undaunting task. God bless you. Please, okay, if you can sit down. I want to especially honor all grandmothers or great-grandmothers. Please stand, and if you're up for the second time, let's give them a hand. As said by my dearly beloved grandson, Braden, yesterday, Grandma, you're very old. Please be seated. And I reminded him, no, I'm very wise. And so it's all about perspective, isn't it? And we want to honor you because you are the wisdom carriers. You're there supporting the mothers who are now, taking on the task you once did. But isn't it good to be able to say, well, I've really enjoyed my few hours, but I'm glad I'm going home right now. So thank you for being the grandparents and grandmothers to these divine, lovely children that we're birthing and bringing into this planet. And we know that they're very different from maybe you and I when we were born, much wiser, if you can see it as I see it. So with that being done, I want to acknowledge everybody here who's somebody's child. Because we all are, aren't we? We are somebody's child. And if it wasn't for that person who birthed us, we would not be here. So no matter what that relationship was or is with that woman who provided the cocoon for our growth so that we could be birthed here, whether they were with you all through your years or continue to be, we know that it was a very special role. And in fact, I would like to remind you, if you've forgotten, and many of us have, that this was a divine appointment that you made even before you entered this world. So you had the most perfect parent or mother that you could have ever dreamt of, because it was your creation. But sometimes it doesn't feel so divine, does it? And so today I want to talk a little bit about having a new divine thought, a change of mind about what mother is. Because I believe that this is a very important thing for us to do in this time. So the first person I like to speak of is Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder. Many call her Mother of Unity. And Myrtle, from a very young child, was very sick and frail. She had tuberculosis. In those days, they believed it was inherited. They had no idea that it was contagious. And so she spent most of her life being very, very weak. She met Charles, and they had a family. She was a teacher. She did a lot of things. But when she was 43, her doctors told her that she was about ready to make her life transition and that she should prepare her family for it. Well, Charles and her had given up at that point on the medical profession of the day, and they traveled around to the best of the New Thought teachers of the time. Many of us know them, Emily Curtis Hopkins and so forth and so on. And they went to Chicago. They went to Chicago. I kind of had this thought when I was writing the talk, I could see them maybe on a train traveling to Chicago. And I thought, wow, I traveled that route by train from Kansas City to Chicago, and I just kind of was reliving that. And I was like, they traveled a long distance by train during their day. It's not like they could hop a plane like we did. But they went to Chicago, and there was a man called E.B. Weeks, and he was one of the most well-known practitioners of the time, holistic practitioners. And when Myrtle and Charles was entering the building where the lecture was being held, E.B. Weeks stood at the entrance, and he greeted everybody. And when Myrtle came up to him, she introduced herself, and she told him that she was dying of tuberculosis and that she had inherited this disease when she was younger. And she looked at him and she said, I need a new thought. I need a new thought. So you could see how unity is one of the new thought movements. Because in that moment, E.B. Weeks embraced her and said, you are a child of God. You do not inherit illness. You are a child of God. You do not inherit illness, debt, poor relationships, anything that we think in this human life that we have to change. We did not inherit that. We have a very different inheritance. And so what Myrtle did is she took that thought and she claimed it, and it didn't just turn around overnight. For 2 years, Myrtle sat in her garden or in her meditation room with a picture of Jesus, and she contemplated and she affirmed this over and over and over again for over 2 years. When finally she was told she was free of tuberculosis, that she was totally whole and healed. And out of that sprung forth our unity movement. That is our divine inheritance. That's why many call her the mother of unity. And based upon that change of thought, that new thought, many people have been healed. Many people have had profound changes in their lives. But oftentimes we find that we continue to have the old thoughts going through our consciousness over and over again, and we keep living it. What if we have a new thought that totally transforms our life? The divine thought of our wholeness and who we are. I want to share a second story. 2 years ago on Mother's Day, 3 years ago on Mother's Day, Reverend Patricia Ryder, and her daughter Robin Ryder, who are the co-ministers, it's a mother-daughter co-ministry team in Venice, Florida. And they shared the healing experience that happened to Robin, Patricia's daughter. When Robin was 17 and in senior high, Patricia was very excited because she was headed to Unity School of Christianity to become a minister. And so she sold her house, and she was packing things up and giving things away and selling things, and very enthusiastic because she had this whole goal to get to Kansas City by October because there was a class she had to take in order to be accepted into the ministerial program. I knew Patricia during this time. She was in a class ahead of me. And so what happened, suddenly in September, Robin, her daughter, woke up one morning with this horrible pain shooting through her eye. And it continued to get worse, and it became inflamed, and there was this red patch. And so very quickly she got sicker and sicker, and Patricia took her to the hospital. And she had shingles all through her body. It moved very quickly through every organ. And the doctors told her she had only maybe a day or two to live. And so Robin's contacted her son and her ex-husband, and they were on their way to be with him and to surround what seemed to be Robin's eventual death. Now, Patricia knew a little bit about psychosomatic illness. In other words, when we have an illness in our body, there is a disconnect in our mental, emotional, or even our spiritual concepts of who we are. So she looked at her daughter and said, "What changed in the last 2 years that has caused you to go out of control?" Because, see, this disease was out of control. And she said, "What is the one thing in the last 2 years that you could think of that seems totally out of your control?" And she said, "You, Mother." And Robin took a deep breath and she said, "You know, Robin was right. I did not give one thought," she said, "to what Robin might be going through during this big change, even though it seemed so good and positive for me. I just assumed it would be just great for her. I was so excited, I thought everything was going to be okay." And so she said in this talk that she decided to pay attention. And she looked at her daughter and she said, "No, everything is changeable. This is totally in your control." And so she said, what we need to have is a change of thought. We need a new thought, just like Myrtle had a new thought. And so during that night, while they waited for the family to arrive, Patricia sat by her daughter's bedside all night holding a new thought of perfect health and wholeness for her daughter. And she did that all through the night, and she was so convinced of Robin's healing that she very enthusiastically went into her daughter's room early that morning, expecting her to be totally 100% healed. But guess what? From the appearances of the moment, she wasn't. But Patricia didn't give up. She continued to hold that thought. And when the doctors came in, she said to the doctors, she said, "You're not allowed to come in this room if you want to see my daughter as dying or unhealthy. When you can see her whole, you're allowed to come in." And she said this to the nurses, and they said, "But we have to do her job." And she said, "Your job is to hold the space that my daughter is well. If you can't do that, you're not allowed." And so everybody began to cooperate with the parents, and the doctors said, "Well, what if we do some blood work on Robin to see where her health was?" And so that's what they did. And about noon that day, the doctors came in and said, "This is unexplainable, but there is no trace of any illness in your daughter's bloodstream. She is perfectly whole." And within 6 days, the lesions all left her. Till this day, she only bears a little scar by her left eye. So Myrtle had a new thought, which caused her healing. Robin and Patricia held a new thought, which caused Robin's healing. And so I had a thought about Mother's Day. What would it be like if we had a new thought about our mothers? What would happen if we decided to change our stories about what and who our mothers were, and we created a new thought about them? What would happen to our relationship between us and our mothers, whether we are adopted and we don't know who they are, whether they are our foster or adopted parents, or if our mothers have made their transition? What would it be like? So that's what we are going to do, because everybody in this room is somebody's child, and you are the child of God. That is the foremost, that is the thought. Your mother was just a vessel in which your soul decided to incarnate. And it was the perfect vessel you needed for your soul's growth. Do you buy that and entertain that thought? No matter what it looked like, no matter what your passage through life might have been, no matter what your story has been or is about your mother, it was perfect for your soul's growth, and your soul has been yearning for this moment to take Mom off the spigot and to give her her freedom. And in so doing, you give yourself the freedom to know what really divine love, the divine feminine, is all about. So today, we are going to heal our relationships with our mothers, all mothers. So I invite you now to gently shut your eyes and to take a very deep breath and just begin to get in touch with that breath. I totally want to tell you that you are totally safe. That perfect love casts out fear. And in this room now, there is just total love, the presence of love, the love that Jesus himself said that he gives to us is here now in this room. So if there's any concerns or reactions to this process, I invite you now to take a deep breath and to release all fear. The Course in Miracles says that there is only love or fear. Let's fill this room with love. I want you to ask yourself, what is my ideal mother? If I had the ideal mother, what would she be like? What would this mother be like in my life? What types of things would she have been able to give me emotionally, physically, if she knew she was divine? I would like to ask you now to imagine the face of your mother. See her sitting right before you. And if you don't know what your mother looked like, see something symbolic, like a rose or the sun or the sea, or a picture of the Divine Mary or Kuan Yin. And now in your heart of heart, I would like to speak to your mother, the things that you would like to bless her with. And those things are the very things that you wish you would have received. And I want you to have a conversation in your heart with her and just relish her with all those things you have desired all through your life. Give her the gift of what you would like, and in so receiving, you are then opening your heart to receive in return total unconditional love. You're not trying in this moment to tell her what you want her to be or how she could change. You are accepting your mother just how she is or how she was, perfect as she was or is now, and telling her and holding her as the right and perfect mother. Give her these things. Give her blessings of joy and gratitude. Now open your hearts, imagining that this love that you desire now is now been given. And the two of you will always be connected heart to heart. And no matter how things look in the physical, you choose a new thought this day, not only of who your mother is, but who you are as that child. For we all are children of a divine mother. And so in this moment, make up your mind a new thought about yourself, of how you will show up as that divine child of God. And when you're ready, begin to say words of gratitude for this new thought that you have received, and begin to open your eyes. Christine Northrup has a prayer for mothers and daughters I would like to share. My prayer for mothers and daughters everywhere is that each one of us is willing to support each other as we birth the highest and best lives possible, that we learn to honor and respect each other without requiring undue sacrifice, that we become willing to forgive each other for the pain and the hurt we may have unwillingly or unwittingly caused one another, that we honor each other as powerful teachers, that we know our fierce mother bear wisdom lives in every cell of our bodies, and it's always available, even when our own mothers are not. That we know that we know, and that we could call on our grandmothers as for guidance whenever we need it, even if she no longer is here in physical form. And finally, that the mother-daughter relationships of the future become so steadfast and supportive that when a woman says, "I'm becoming just like my mother," she will beam with pride, and her friends and family will proclaim, "Well done." Happy Mother's Day.